All right, C-Jack is back with another video, and this time it's about his view on NXT and the WWE roster. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's a screenshot in case you want to subscribe. We're not going to waste no time. We're going to go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and get started with this video.
Oh yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? Your boy today is going to be discussing NXT, okay? It's a hot topic. Everybody's been talking about it over the last couple months pretty much, talking about a resurgence, a quote unquote new era, right? Like Triple H said there was going to be a new era on the main roster since Mania 40. And things have only gotten worse, you know what I'm saying? And Cody Rhodes' title reign has been garbage, Gunther stinks, and so on and so forth. But quite frankly, NXT, I obviously keep up with the segments week to week. I watch the full episodes some weeks, and then obviously I watch all the PLEs going on for NXT, and I have to say, NXT is a pretty decent show overall, and it is the most consistent and the best current show in the entirety of WWE, and it's not remotely close. SmackDown is basically confirmed every week to be a 3 out of 10 at best. Everyone already knows this. Everyone's complaining about SmackDown because it does suck. It doesn't flow, it's boring, it's monotonous, the matches are repetitive, the storylines do not move, the wrestlers, the meaningful wrestlers on the show barely ever wrestle at all, right? Specifically talking about Cody Rhodes, obviously, right? And then, of course, because SmackDown is having some record low viewership over the last month or so, it's pretty evident to see that it's declining. Same thing with Raw, right? They debuted with 6 million on Netflix, 6 million views, and now they're all the way back in the high 2 millions to low 3 millions range. They've lost millions of viewers in literally a month. One is both SmackDown and Raw are declining in terms of viewership and quality, in my opinion, and then NXT is obviously on the up and up. So there you have that. And quite frankly, right, because the main roster is filled with all the big stars, like your Romans, Cena's, the final boss, or the final Diddy, I should say, The Rock, you know what I'm saying? He's showing up, right? Cody's your WWE champion, and so on and so forth. CM Punk, right? It's Rollins, etc. All of these people are going to make the main roster more of a must-watch show because of just the star power there and the storylines and the Mania build and the fact that it's main roster versus developmental. But the fact is that regardless of the status of NXT, whether it's developmental or not, it still is solid wrestling content that's entertaining, puts on consistently solid matches, has some good promos and segments here or there, and is a more consistent and reliable show than SmackDown and Raw. I don't care who these stars are. When John Cena doesn't show up, Roman Reigns doesn't show up, Drew McIntyre is booked like a jobber, Cody Rhodes doesn't wrestle, Gunther doesn't wrestle and can't elevate any feuds because he's not good on the mic at all, same with Cody pretty much. It's as simple as that. I'd rather trust something that's reliable than something just because it has stars in it. It has the big names in it. Yeah, that's great, but is it good? No. So do the stars show up? No. So it's what do you want? In all reality, none of these shows, in my opinion, are truly great, right? Because none of them are consistently great, right? They're not even consistently very good. NXT is consistently pretty decent. It's usually going to be between the 6 to 8 out of 10 range, which I 100% respect, and that's solid for NXT. It does its job. But I'm not going to buy into the hype and say NXT is the greatest thing ever. It's not. It's just better than garbage Raw and garbage SmackDown. And I'm going to discuss reasons as to why I believe that. Number one, the women's division is simply just way better from top to bottom. I was one of those people who was cautiously optimistic about all the claims about, NXT's women's division is the best in the world. They're amazing. They're this, they're that. Until I watched them. They're amazing. All right, let's just be honest with ourselves. This women's division is amazing, okay? They have great in-ring talent. They have people who have actual gimmicks, which is important because on the main roster, I feel like there's not many characters in the women's division anymore, right? Everyone just kind of has the same thing. Tiffany Stratton, Chelsea Green, for example, right? Even Zelina Vega to an extent. Just these bratty, annoying characters. Same thing with Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez. They all play the same character. You know what I'm saying? If you close your eyes and just listen to them cut promos, right? It's just the same stuff. Chelsea Green, it's Tiffy time. Rhea. Dude, what are you doing? It's the same character. They're all just annoying, playing these random roles that, quite frankly, are starting to get very stale and very boring and very repetitive at the end of the day. But in NXT, you have a multitude of different gimmicks. You know what I mean? You have Tatum Paxley, who's playing a goth Rhea Ripley kind of character. Sol Ruka's a surfer who knows how to wrestle, right? Jada Parker is just an over-charismatic and over-confident character, which works greatly. Roxanne Perez is kind of a similar in that nature. Roxanne Perez is kind of an underdog kind of character. Stephanie Vaquer is just some absolute beast. She's a merge between Rhea Ripley and Zelina Vega and all kinds of different things, And then you have Julia, right? She has her character. I don't really like Julia at all, but she does have her character, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I like me some Julia.
Beautiful Madness or whatever they call her. And then Kalani Jordan, right, who has like the gymnast kind of character. She's great in the ring, super athletic. Like, all of these things are respective gimmicks in which you can differentiate these women by. Jordan Grace, you know what I'm saying? Big muscle head, just running in there and beating the crap out of people. The Juggernaut, right? I'm the Juggernaut, you know what I mean? So that's really interesting in my personal opinion. Obviously, athletically, it's not really, remotely close. On the main roster, you have maybe 3 or 4 like great plus or great elite, level athletes in the women's division. Bianca Belair, right? Io Sky, of course, and that's pretty much that. Jade Cargill is super athletic, of course, as well. And then outside of that, there's not really much in the conversation. Rhea Ripley is strong, right? And she shows flashes of good athleticism, but there's no actual way that anyone believes that, like, Sol Ruka is less athletic than anybody I just named, except for maybe Bianca. Let's be real with ourselves, Jordan Grace is the same thing. We saw it at the Royal Rumble. She was clearly the highlight of that match, and she was in the match for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And she's competing with main roster level woman. So this is like, this argument is already over. That literally settles that enough. In the ring, I think they put on better matches on average. Because just think about it, right? Lyra Valkyria versus Dakota Kai compared to like Stephanie Vaquer versus like Fallon Henley, or Stephanie Vaquer versus like a Kalani Jordan, for example, right? Or a Jada Parker match for that she could have versus Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia or any of those people is going to be better than the average Lyra Valkyria versus Dakota Kai match, or the average Chelsea Green versus Michin Part 89 match. You know what I'm saying? It's very simple stuff. The in-ring work is just better. The gimmicks are better. And the promos, even though they mostly suck, they're on par with the competition because most promos on the women's main roster suck too. And the simple reality is that, look, the women's division on NXT, right? Half of these women can actually go to the main roster right now and will be better than 98% of the stuff that we're seeing from the main roster woman, right? Like, outside of what? Rhea Ripley, I'd say. Bianca Belair. Honestly, Rhea Ripley isn't even an option right now because she doesn't get booked to wrestle and she doesn't cut promos. And when she does cut promos, they're pretty boring, forgettable, and pretty garbage, like we saw on Raw with her promo with Io Sky, right? So, for example, if Stephanie Vaquer comes up to the main roster and wrestles consistently, you know what I'm saying? It balances out because even though most of these NXT women are not going to be able to cut good promos on the mic, besides like Jada Parker pretty much, even with that, they're still going to be more entertaining because they have gimmicks, they have stories with their gimmicks, and they wrestle good matches. So that alone is going to be more than someone like Rhea Ripley, who just shows up every 4 weeks and then decides to say, I'm going to take back my title that I never lost, yeah. I never beat Io, yeah. So I'm going to win that title back, yeah. I'm going to retain my belt, yeah. Like, it's not interesting anymore. Rhea Ripley has been booked into oblivion and Triple H has done a poor job with her. So therefore, I would much rather see a Stephanie Vaquer come up there and wrestle, right? Jada Parker would probably light the women's division on fire if she was on the main roster. She'd immediately have the most charisma. She'd immediately be able to cut the best promos. And she'd be wrestling solid matches, much better matches than like Zoe Stark or Dakota Kai. So I just don't understand the logic here. Most of these women, like Jordan Grace, right? Jada Parker, I think, honestly, what's her name? Stephanie Vaquer should come up. Roxanne Perez is already coming up. We can see that. She was in the longest. She was the Iron Woman in the Rumble, and she's going to be in the Chamber this weekend. Like, this is very set in stone. These women are just better, and they have more potential, and they're all on the younger side of the roster. They're all in like their 20s, you know what I'm saying? Early 30s at the latest, So it's just the facts. This is the potential, and this is the future of your women's division. So that's the first thing. Secondly, championship reigns and wrestling. The championship, reigns on NXT, right? They interchange. You know what I'm saying? Trick Williams was NXT champion. He lost it to Ethan Page, won it back, and then lost it to Obafemi, and then Obafemi will probably lose it at some point this year. The title changes hands about 4 to 5, maybe even 6 times within a 10-month to 12-month period. That is far more interesting and far better, and it actually gives different arcs, like potentially, for Trick Williams right now, he's having a heel arc. For some odd reason on the main roster, Cody Rhodes and Gunther have to hold these belts hostage for like a year and a half. It makes no sense. You're not doing anything to elevate the belts. You're not elevating any feuds. So why are you holding the belt unnecessarily for like 250 days? Or in Cody's case, it's going to be like 350, basically a year, over a year by the time he defends at Mania 41. I find it to be absolutely just egregious at this point with the championship defenses. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are we doing this? And then, of course, on NXT, champions and just people in general, right? People of prominence actually wrestle consistently. Obafemi just won the NXT championship, I think, like, a month and a half, 2 months ago, right? He won that belt, and then he had a match on NXT like a few weeks later. He had a title defense versus Grayson Waller and Austin Theory at what's it called? Vengeance Day, I think it was. And now he's going to have a defense against Moose, you know what I'm saying, in a couple weeks on their next PPLE on Roadblock. So that's 4 matches in the span of, 6-7 weeks, and then that's 2 or 3 defenses in that span as well. So why, this is the stuff that you need from your champions. Your champions should be defending. They should be wrestling, right? Stephanie Valkyrie just won the belt like a week or 2 ago. She's already had like a match or 2 since, you know? Julia won the belt like a month or 2 ago. She's already had like 3 or 4 matches since. This is stuff that I like to see. Your champion showing up to work, wrestling, and being consistent. On the main roster, I can't tell you the last time Gunther actually wrestled a legitimate match. Not a 5-minute match versus Tozawa where he didn't even break a sweat, but an actual match. You know, same thing with Cody Rhodes, right? Braun Breaker wrestles every 6 or 7 weeks at a time. You know, it's embarrassing. Shinsuke Nakamura, you forget he's even champion sometimes because he doesn't do anything. He wrestles like once every 5 or 6 weeks himself. The tag team championships are absolutely meaningless. And that's another thing. The tag team division on NXT is just better. They put on better matches, and Fraxium is currently the best working tag team in WWE. They're just more entertaining, they're more engaging, they're more interesting, they're more athletic, and they put on the most entertaining matches in my personal opinion. The next reason I think NXT is the best current show is because it flows better with less filler, right? Raws and SmackDowns now are just empty episodes to fill out and just, get you to the next PLE. That's all they are. That's literally all they are. Nothing of meaning is happening. You're getting a repeat hodgepodge of the same matches, right? It'll be Nia Jax versus Bayley one week, then Bayley and someone else versus Nia Jax and Candice, and it'll be Tiffany versus Candice, and then Tiffany versus Nia, and then Tiffany versus Bayley, and then on Raw, you get the same situation like it was for like a couple months, where it's Drew versus Sammy, or Sammy versus Drew. You know what I'm saying? Sammy and Jay versus this person and that person, right? Then Jay and Jacob Fatu, or Jay and Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. Jimmy Uso and Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga versus Cody Rhodes and Damian Priest. It's the same stuff, you know? It really is just the same stuff, just to move you on and give you filler so you can get to the next pay-per-view. That's all it is. But on NXT, you can get a title change here and there, right? You can, like, Obafemi's legendary, or, I don't know about it being legendary, but it is one of the best North American championship reigns in the history of NXT, and it ended on a random episode of NXT, right? And that's just how it works. Gunther's IC belt reign would never end on an episode of Raw, even if it was a special episode of Raw, like a Raw on Netflix, or even if it was like just another special episode where the US belt was on the line, right? Or the world title's on the line. None of these belts would ever change hands on the main roster. It's not happening. And with NXT, stories get furthered. Every single week, usually, there's something to move the stories forward. So Obafemi will come out and have a match, and then afterwards we'll have a promo with Moose. The following week, Moose will have a match, and then have a promo with Obafemi. And the following week, they're wrestling for the championship. You know what I'm saying? Like, things flow, they move, and no one of prominence just doesn't show up for weeks 7 weeks at a time, like Gunther did, and early this year, and even at the late parts of last year. There's no scenario where a world champion, right, an Obafemi, for example, is going to disappear for 7 weeks straight, and then come back and still not wrestle. Are you kidding me? It just doesn't make any sense. So NXT, in that aspect, this does a way better job than the main roster does, and Shawn Michaels does a much better job than Triple H. So there's really no argument there in terms of, what makes more sense and what works better, at least in my personal opinion. And then obviously, in my personal opinion, right, you get good, consistent matches, and honestly, most of these matches are usually pretty great in many scenarios. Fraxium, for example, puts on consistently great matches. Every single Fraxium match that I've seen their last, pretty much, I think it was like their last 5 to 10 matches, right, TV and PLEs included, from like No Mercy, all the way to Vengeance Day. They have not had one match that's below like an 8 out of 10 quality. Javon Evans, I've not seen him have a match that was below an 8 out of 10 quality. Besides what he just did with Ethan Page at Vengeance Day, I thought that match was absolutely mid. However, outside of that, he puts on bangers. Him and Cedric Alexander versus Fraxium is one of the best matches of 2024, and no one talks about it pretty much, right? but it just is what it is, And then Obafemi obviously puts on consistently good matches. Any of the women any given night are going to give you a better match on average, right, than the matches that we're getting on the main roster with most of the women. So it's as simple as that. And then another massive aspect with NXT is the fact that they have more variety. So for example, on the main roster, like I mentioned, you get repeated matches and repeated storylines, and it becomes very boring and monotonous, and it feels like filler garbage. That's just what it is. You know, it is that, right? It's just filler garbage. At the end of the day, NXT gives you variety. For example, with TNA, the TNA deal has been great. Number one, Jordynne Grace, I think her TNA contract finished, and she came over to WWE, and now she's probably going to be doing some really big and cool things on NXT. I thought she was main roster ready, but still, you know what I'm saying? She's coming over, and she's going to do a good job at NXT now, right? Stephanie Vaquer comes over, not from TNA, obviously, but Stephanie Vaquer comes over, and she does a great job. Julia comes over, does a solid job. You know, they have sometimes they have main roster appearances on NXT, right? Like The Rock showed up about a month ago, you know? You had a situation, right, where, what's his name? Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy showed up, right? Two legends of the industry showed up. It was epic. I watched that match live on NXT. That match was pretty cool. Jeff Hardy really hasn't lost a step in the ring. Like, he obviously is not what he was, right? But he's like 70 to 80% of what he was for the most part, you know? The other 20% is just athleticism and age, and the other 80%, he's still pretty much, you know, the same thing. Matt Hardy out there, you know what I'm saying? Delete. You know, I like Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy's a beast. And they were out there wrestling some of the younger talent and putting on a good match that the fans were incredibly interested in. And that was mostly a surprise to a lot of people, you know, for them to even be on an NXT episode and to even announce that they would show up on an NXT episode, right? So that's the type of stuff that builds intrigue and excitement, because with NXT, you never know what you're going to get. It's not a predictable garbage show where you already know everything that's going to happen from the start to the finish. You know the match results. You know who's showing up and who isn't. You know what I'm saying? It just is a more interesting product that has more, it has more intrigue because of the fact that you don't know what's going to happen, right? It's more of an open-ended show, and that makes for better entertainment in the long run. And then back to the TNA deal with the Hardys coming over, for example, right? Santino Marella making a cameo the other night on NXT was epic. And then you also have the fact that guys like Moose can come over. Moose is just a beast. You know what I'm saying? Him and Obafemi, that match is likely going to be an absolute banger. And quite frankly, I'm really looking forward to it. I think Obafemi is actually pretty good. I mean, I've been saying this for months. I think he's good. On the main roster, he could potentially win a world championship one day. If I had to put money on it, I wouldn't put money on him winning a world title, but he could be a great like IC belt, or IC champion, I should say, that holds it for an extended period of time, and it makes sense and it's believable, right? Obafemi's like as big as Drew McIntyre, if not bigger, and he has like, you know, the African gimmick and everything, right? I think he's from Nigeria. It works. You know, it's just believable gimmick. Trick Williams, again, another big guy who comes in. If he holds a belt for like more than 6 months, it's believable. He wrestles consistently. He's physically imposing. He's over with the crowd. Like, what else does this dude need? You know what I'm saying? Like this is just what it is, right? Trick Williams, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't want Trick Williams to come in the main roster. The way Hunter is running things with the bookings, I really don't want him to come. You know, I mean, Roxanne's been going back and forth. And I think it's mainly because she knows that the bookings is completely out of rhythm. You know what I mean? So I just don't know. I don't think he should come. But unless they got a plan for him, I don't think he should come. I'm going to be honest with you. I'd rather him to stay in NXT so that way he can keep his pop running. But the fact that might be turning heel, I don't know if the crowd's going to continue saying, whoop that trick. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I'm afraid for this heel turn because, I mean, you're going to make the crowd stop saying, whoop that trick. They probably going to say, stop that trick. You know what I'm saying? Like, or boo that trick, you know? But, they don't do that, but they might. They might. But I hope not.
I think it's still a little bit green on the gills on the mic, and I think in the ring he could use a little bit of work, you know, some polishing. But at the end of the day, he's got all the other attributes pretty much nailed down, you know, so it is what it is. And so overall, I mean, I think the women's division obviously being better, the booking of wrestling matches and wrestling matches from the prominent wrestlers like your champions, right? You know, the flow of the show, the fact that it's less fillery than Raw and SmackDown is, and the fact that on NXT you can get title changes and stories actually furthering week to week, and your top people are not just not there for moments at time, right? Like Roman, Cena, you know what I'm saying, Rock, etc., even Gunther, right? Who, you know, Cody Rhodes too. These dudes will just go weeks and weeks without wrestling, without cutting promos, or without doing doing anything. So it's just unacceptable. But overall, I don't think NXT is a great show, but it is consistent, it is solid, it is respectable, it has done multiple good things in the recent future, and it probably be doing good things in the near future as well. So it leaves me a little bit excited, you know what I'm saying? I might have to start doing NXT reviews, you know what I'm saying, and recaps night to night. But let me know what you think about NXT in the comment sections below. And as always, I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Peace out and one love.
I mean, look, I've always said that NXT is better than the main roster, but, you know, again, we just have to see what happens. But I do think it's a little bit strange that that the main roster is not doing as better as NXT. But that's what happens when you don't have a bookkeeper that can keep everything organized, you know, metaphorically speaking. But, you know, again, I don't want to disrespect Hunter and what he does. I mean, he's great at marketing and promoting, but when it comes down to bookings, it's like, you might want to hire somebody for that, you know, instead of just having you do it. You know, we could just focus on the marketing and the promo of the company. You get what I'm saying? So hopefully, you know, Triple H will, you know, get somebody to take care of those affairs while he do something else. Well, he could, like I said, he could still run the company. He just can't be the bookkeeper. Have somebody else do it, you know? So, yeah. I mean, y'all can get on the comment box and discuss. What do you guys think, man? Y'all agree with C-Jack on this one? Or do you guys feel like there's some missing pieces about the main roster we don't know about? Y'all comment down below and let me know, all right? Get on the comment box and make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. And, by the way, anybody from NXT that you want to see on the main roster, be careful what you wish for. It might get granted. Just trust me when I say it might get granted. Okay? Get on the comment box and make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share if you're new. And I'll catch you on the next video, all right? I'm out.